And how did you sleep? Quite well? I less than gently said to Glenda, turn the lights out, please. So the lights didn't go out. It's not, I like darkness for sleeping. I'd like to refer to this because light is light. We have 20 states and provinces represented here. And I've been asked if you get together in some way for communication when this magnificent seminar is over, so that you can liaison and not. Just incidentally, this seminar will take months to integrate. It is not, so those that have been through 2 or 3, as Peter in the back, and this dear heart from Quebec, who was in Portugal, my heart goes out to you. I know what's involved and what happens internally and externally, and a few of you. That's Las Vegas, there's the pillars back there. But more and more, part of the hastening that your mind cannot grasp is the coding. I want to explain this to you. Some of you may have read a little piece on it. But on the 7th of March, you've heard us talk about, or you've heard representations made towards Merc. I call them Merc because that's really what they are. Her talk took it a different extension because of his association with Cabal with a K, not the bad guys with a C. And he called them Merkaba. And all of those are appropriate. Whatever fits with your vibration. I need to talk about it because more and more of you, I see several, more directly associated with self, will be going and are going in to the Merkaba. Now, there are various levels of what we call Merkaba. But the 7th of March, I took my first journey, and as a little, I want you to know some of these things, because if you take this journey, you must advise your family that you're not catatonic. I do. If you get a sense that one morning the dog can't waken you and the kids can't get you up, or that nobody seems to be able to move you, that it might not be very serious. In fact, it might be the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to you. And this is happening more and more. On the 7th of March, this wasn't the only 2 times, but they're the most immediate times where I was literally gone. And when I came back in to consciousness, the body was a little bit confused because, again, of the pyramidal grids. The pyramidal light grids and the formations are nearly all pyramidal, meaning the powers in the corners, if you remember your geometry. But it's much more explicit than that, and much of the memory, of course, was erased. But that was on both sides of the body. And being fortunate enough to carry the feminine principle of existence and anchor it on the earth on the 10th of May, that was very different. When we speak of the room lighting up, doesn't mean you're leaving at that moment. In this instance, I'd gone to bed about 10 o'clock at night, and the room started to light up, and I thought, oh, here goes again. I won't be able to sleep. I should really buy something simple like blinders. But that wouldn't work either because it's not that kind of light. So that wouldn't work. So on the 10th of May, which was the eclipse of the moon, you remember, many of you, full eclipse I gather, partial I don't know. And that evening, the room lit up. And then I was profoundly affected by a feeling of being directed. Not as in gray alien, but as in love. And I just, again, trusted. Trust will become more and more implicit in your reality. For I think if I had registered fear at any time, the unfolding would not have taken place. And the second time, we went into light completely and disappeared. And I don't remember after that what happened until about 10:30 the next morning, 10:30 the next morning, I came out of the situation slightly too early. And I can remember the right side of my body, and I know now this was the feminine principle of existence, coming in the dynamic side of our physical body, our body. And the coding here was extremely different, all aqua blue. But that does not mean that your coding is going to be in an aqua blue. Don't look for definitive guidelines. My coding is slightly different than any of yours, and yours will be different than your neighbor's. And it will happen differently with everyone. But this is the time where we need all the assistance we can get. And when the preparation is made for the vehicle, your consciousness will ascend. And the coding is the fastest and most recommended method of learning. I actually felt a little brighter after the right side, and it wasn't, for me, pyramidal grid up to, not into the source. Remember, there's no structure into your monad, not as you know it. You create the structure. So above the pyramidal light grid, as we often take you into, is the wondrous monad, the spiritual realm, the true spiritual realm, not what you've been taught. And the coding at this time, I got up and I stumbled around. I finally got to the living room. And a friend in another room came out and asked if I would like my porridge. Whether I want porridge or did I want porridge and toast? I was getting a little annoyed. I went back to bed because I wasn't ready yet to come out. And I could see the coding on the right side. So all of you, I think this was the feminine principle being anchored. Not to our other galaxies, through those who have worked galactically and universally, who sit in this room, who over a period of time when there is preparation sufficient for you to ignite this coding, this is what happens. And it will happen in many, many different ways. Some of you, 2 or 3, 4, 5, 9 of you are beginning to receive this coding, and you're receiving it differently. The ultimate coding is to be taken consciously. There's nothing gray about this. Don't fight this one. So your discernment is required, is it not, without fear? It's such a loving vibration that you shut your eyes and you follow the will, that you know, is of a creative nature, a very creative nature, a very loving nature. And the coding on the right side, I did know, was the anchoring, finally, of what came up in Basel, which the personality mind didn't completely understand, that there was a feminine principle of existence that we had not anchored on this planet. All of you, I mean, all of you, as you don't perfect. Perfection is not a word within the Godhead, because it's forever evolving, ever expanding. The perfection is not the word. But as we prepare for multidimensional nature, as we prepare the body to go into the fourth, fifth, sixth dimension, and some of you to connect as you will, some of you are already doing this, making a direct connection with the Oversoul and the Monad. That too can be coding. There's a perception that somebody has written about that it can only be taken the 12 strands of being only within the physical realm, and this is not true. And we will take you through some of that today. Don't try to make conversation when you come out. Not. Have any had a similar experience that they know of? I know coding is going on. I can know a few of you have begun to be recoded. Yes, I did. How did it happen with you? I don't know that some of you with better ears. What happened, Brenda? Oh, no, you're all going to do that, and you're doing it now. Now, this process, Blessed Heart, is a little bit different. You are not conscious. Those who have been affected by grace know that they have been imposed upon a sense of grace. This is nothing like this. And there's no burning. It's simply transformation and the profoundest sense of love. Okay? Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, there will be no fear with this one, gentlemen. No, after. Good. Mm-hmm. Anyway, good for you. And good for all of us. It happens in various, and all of you will not be coded the same way. Here again, some of you will be coded in circles, and will be dots, and will be dashes. The Pyramidal Grid is because of its power. Circles are very prevalent because of the completion, the sense of completion. The pyramidal system should be the forerunner for experiencing the murk. You've all been in murks one time or another, and the murks are classified differently. There are those that are very multidimensional, or we could say the upper regions of the universe. Not really its companion. You have your space brothers, which many of you have worked with. They're all called Lord Who. Don't limit yourself to one command, for there are many commands. And then you channel one of them. That I would like to talk about with the Lord, Lord Jesus, Lord Messiah, Lord Saint Germain. These body travel more specifically with the one that you all channel, or some of you have worked with. What do you call him? That has more of a planetary hierarchical ring because they seem to be at the same level of vibration as Jesus and others. And if there ever were a return, there's no reason for Maitreya or Jesus to come back to this planet. This planet is being operated very, very well by millions. So the second coming is rather mythical. If they come back at all, they would come back in and with the second coming is within your own crisis, gentlemen. Never was, and was never intended to be otherwise. And there will be multitudes of you as Christ. The distortion in Scripture is so massive that it has really alienated you for so very long, of specifically you, for humankind, until the gentleman called Jesus had more tears over this corruption than you could imagine. So when he comes in, should he come in, it would simply be a vibration. He's still physical. And you must get this thing very clearly. He's a man, is a man, is a man, and he is physical. There are a number of Earths who work at a higher evolution than does this one. Maitreya, who overlighted or overshadowed this lovely man, didn't want to risk failure by coming all the way in at a time when the sixth initiation was not available to humankind. I'm going to talk about initiations simply because they were a thing of the past and they were valid as points of light being integrated. And I can remember even a scene we did this many times in Aztec land we did this. And there were various initiations, and the whole point was one of raising up. To legitimize initiation in the true sense would be a falsehood. But for the human condition is valid if that's what you wish. I think unlimitedness and not putting any limits on your growth would be much more valid. Connecting with your God's thought. You don't need validation if you've done this, but many do. So that's fine. But you worked very hard yesterday. Some of you fell asleep, which is fine. Some of you snored, that's fine. It picks up the group boosting the vibration. And up until noon yesterday, most everyone was all right. I'm going to tell you, did go into the fifth dimension. It always happens. You haven't done the fifth. Only a small group in Spain did that. And some of you are here. if you did go into the fifth dimension, it qualifies you as a sixth level mystic. You must understand that you cannot do what was referred to as the sixth initiation until you go into the fifth dimension. It was always, this is why McClure didn't take the risk of doing that. It's always done from the seventh astral level and then going in and across the border. And there you see, remember those maps, some of you youngsters, some of you older ones, remember Kilroy. Kilroy was here and had a little head like this and the great snarl of the body. The little eyes thinking over his board. Well, that's what you look like when you go into the fifth. Will I go blind? And that's a very good analogy for you to keep in mind, because objectively, with the disciplines that we're allowed to anchor on this planet, that becomes very, very profound, because that's what we speak of as the absolute boundary between the fourth and the fifth dimension. But when your body can vibrate, and this is the pressure put on your body, is that it can vibrate fifth and sixth dimension. This could never happen, as you know. Because the distance between the vibration of the earth and the vibration of Homo sapien, of he-man, God-man, is too great, so it kills the body. Destroyed the body, the physical body, none of the other bodies to touch. So in the crucifixion of Jesus, and Peter, and many others, what they died, they left their body in transition, was the gap between the vibration of the earth and the cellular vibration. They could not maintain the gap. It was not the outrageous crucifixion that killed these beings. It was the gap between the vibration of earth and the vibration of the being. It was too great. If you can view our little planet now as being somewhat fortuitous, where the 10th moonadic vehicle has anchored enough energy into this planet that all of us are feeling to raise the vibration of earth to the point where it's a non-issue. You feel it. We feel it a great deal from time to time. And we wonder sometimes, why me? Why me? So this gap, please, gentlemen, please. Please. So now the gap isn't there. And you will, this body, this vehicle of people written about, people written about the ascension, the ultimate ascension, the steps to ascension. I tell you, which ascension? You can't be speaking of primary ascension, because that is the light body that most of you are wearing. So repeat. The light body that you are creating is the vehicle for ascension. It isn't as it was. When you listen to these tapes, I just view that you will assimilate this and not listen to the amount of nonsense genuinely given, thoughtfully given, but it has no application to where you are. If you speak of this physical ascension, you're doing it. If you speak of the spiritual ascension, that is something very different. And it has never been done. Brian consciously has done this, and others will. That's a great, great step. That has nothing to do with the universe. It has everything day we spoke of you. When we spoke to you yesterday, we spoke of the coding, did we not? The difference between your DNA as it's properly being implemented now with 12 friends is totally overshadowed by the nice day that we use. So you feel this and you're very comfortable up to the moon, dealing with what you know. That's the body you're building. So you can feel fairly comfortable about the body you're building, because that is the proverbial light body, the light body for ascension. People talk to you about ascension. However you take that, it has to be with this light body which you're building. So the many, many steps for ascension, be cautious with that the light body is your vehicle. And whether you leave with a certain type of spacecraft or with a Merkaba, you will not take the physical body until you do the spiritual ascension. Jesus never left that way. He left with Merkaba. Under the clouds, the Bible speaks of. Those who read the Bible, you under that, there's a cloud. And then that was the Merkaba. I'm going to use the word mirth because it's more familiar to me when I remember that you all have read the great doctor who deals mostly with the Jewish tradition, the whole Buddhist tradition on this planet. I understand what he says very well, so I think he's an excellent teacher. But everything they speak of is universal. So the ascension that we speak of with you, and which you've waited for so long to have this stuff, in your coding you know there is a spiritual realm and you've been deceived. So the spiritual realm is not just your, quote, spiritual hierarchy. They are men as you are, men and women. The greatest of these is Melchizedek from an energy point of view, at least most one that all of you know. And this being is only making that transition from universal consciousness to cosmic consciousness now. So we need a new language that we're managing fairly well for the vibration of a third dimensional language. And when it's all said and done, it's a matter of vibrations, you know. A sense of openness, sense of trust, a magnification of the heart, and a magnification and unity with the cosmic heart. And uniting those two as you did yesterday. So the 10th phrase, which is not yet programmable, because you've not completed the 12-strand DNA, will be implemented very, very rapidly. And that's something we will do today, to make that connection with the source so that the DNA, we touched on it in Bellevue, Washington, a few of you were there. So that we can become something more than all that ever was in your beliefs, universal. We only spoke of one universe. And the greatness of Dual School, maybe the foremost channel, would be Washington, down the school of that. If they could only bring in and understand anything up to the ninth I'm going to get it right this time. This is. And what I want you to understand is there is no limitation anymore. The earth is prepared through the agency that we call the 10th, 11th, and 12th rays that so energize this planet now. That all is available to you. There is only perceived limitations, and they are mostly in your belief system. Energy is energy is energy. And as subtle as this energy was yesterday afternoon, when you got out of the way, this is the irony, when you get out of the way, I looked at it last night, some of you were sleeping, some of you didn't understand it, others were trying to follow it, others saw it. Getting out of the way and concentrating on a number of the Council of 12 allows you to go into the fifth dimension. It's almost an irony, which is the way it works. It's subtle, you can't push it. The subtlety of your sciences as they develop and become spiritual. That's a frightening word for it. So I have to align with spirituality to understand the wholeness, which they understand maybe a billion. So, are we going to become unlimited vehicles with trust, love? Yes. But if you don't understand the intrinsic principles, it's awfully difficult. You have mind. This is why you have mind. You have a higher mind. We're not dealing with the lower will, the lower mind. That solar plexus that helps create so much excessive outer structure that you all live in. And in your imprisonment, your success is in this outer world that has no reality from your God source. Everything's out there. And I tell this story because it's something I've done. Look at the apartment. See that 6-story building over there? Over there? I built that. Has 2 bathrooms and 3 bedrooms in that student. I did that. And it becomes ridiculous when you think of which I are we talking about? We're always talking about the negative ego. It's not an evil ego. It's an ego that says, look at what I did. Boy, when Sally sees that car I bought, then she'll marry me. It's got 4-wheel drive and 6 gears forward, and it's got everything. Leather seats. If this is the predication on which marriages are decided, we know that that's not true. It's generally at a different vibration, isn't it? Much more basic. I feel like I've known her forever. And the truth in that is probably more prominent than that individual believes what they're saying. So we know now that the overshadowing of the ninth ray is very comfortable with the DNA that you're building. 10th, 11th, 12th ray are spiritual in the truest sense of the word. And they have never been used universally in a way that they're being applied now. There's a hastening of the age, because this cosmic day is behind its schedule. Source doesn't lose. We amplify beliefs from all kinds of systems that are quite inaccurate. The source is not going to lose. Nobody's going to be recycled. Systems are not going to be recycled. It needs to look at darkness or be having a conversation with itself. You see why there are polarities? I don't know if any of you have any remembrance of the fifth astral heaven, but this is where the chosen go. It's not a very high vibration. But they believe they've been there forever, and they believe that this is heaven. Compared to heaven, it is non-existent. Its vibration is very heavy, because it's so closely linked with you, the earth, and the astral. So that is what it is. Astral projection. So oftentimes in transition, you go to what is astral level. It's not required now. It is why we did the merge of the astral with the switch body. Remember what you did? So it's the etheric body. It still has atoms. Brian hasn't figured out what they are, but I guess it's silicon and carbon. There's a hybrid that we don't know of. And we're allowed now to merge the 10th ray, opulent pearl. And he did this quite wonderfully yesterday, because that's as simple as it is. The inability for us to unite with our source is our own creation. We've created not through darkness, just through a sense of alienation and having been thrust from our wonderful place of birth into this atmosphere of density and confusion. So because your God source needs to look at dualities at least at the universal level, this is not as apparent as you go into the monad. That's it. Only as far as what we call the oversoul would you see any sense of duality at all. That is so marginal as to be nearly non-existent. But in our duality, we can create and have created for us and allowed about every inconvenience that man can imagine not to get it right. The imprisonment on this planet, we could say, was divisive. The source wished to look at it. That you would limit the DNA to 2 strands. This is what I find amazing, that any of you have found light amazing. With a two-strand DNA, which is the first two chakras, I view it as three because you include the I and the we, our. That some of you have gone into light. This is phenomenal. And as much caution as I can give you, you will face this yourselves, where you will see beings who are much less than attractive, and many, many, many will follow. As appropriate. But some will follow. So it's absolutely ironic today that Satan has become what they abhor the most. Satan. There's no place in God's realm for fear. Hell? What in the world is hell? Except in our own mind. In all my travel, I've only seen hell within the minds of man, and those that proclaim their virtue and their godliness are most often the darkest. It's a very simple journey. Please weary of being told this, and this. What Jesus and a few of us spoke of was a simple, galactic visit. And what a few opportune politicians, Constantine principally, Queen Theodora, mad Theodora, she was helping, saw a great opportunity for darkness, for manipulation, for control. And this is what's happened for the last 250 million years on this planet. So when I speak of two golden ages a few million years ago, it's almost incomprehensible that it was that long ago, because there's nothing in our history, there's nothing in our archaeology, there's nothing that supports the planet that's 3.4 billion years old has had other civilizations. You'll begin to see these now, possibly out of Central South America. There will be findings. And with all findings, there will be confusion, particularly with science. Science has got some problems coming up for them. They'll have to re-identify the basis of what it is they're looking through and looking at. There's huge resistance now. Why, if an agency called Christianity and Christians are so obsessed with a new age, why aren't they comfortable with what it is they have? Live that, if that's what they wish. But when the Pope comes out against the New Age, well, we might as well. Poor dear said nothing else very successful. fearful in its application because its truth genetically is very, very deep. The shift, the fear, when you create fear, you learn to live with it. And in that fear, we find in time that there's something that trickles that says, maybe with this vibration on earth, if you're that conscious, if one were that conscious, maybe there's something wrong. It doesn't seem to work. Look at the thousands of years we prayed to somebody. Look at the thousands and thousands of years we've given our power away. Look at how we treat women. Look at how we treat the earth. There's something wrong. Why is the mafia supported by this branch of Christianity? Why was the Nazis supported by Christianity? Well, I can't think about it. It's too uncomfortable to think about. So darkness begets its own. And anything then that isn't dark is uncomfortable. And that's where you are. In that zone where you know what was isn't, and how to make the transformation from where you were at all times into where you're going with the least amount of alienation or feeling like a freak. The bulk of humanity say, oh, they're one of those.